dare I say, our favorite guest is coming. You know what I'm talking about? Satellites that release satellites into space.
Yeah, you know.
Our buddy John Rood, CEO of Momentus, stock symbol MNTS. There is a nice graphic from their website. Pretty cool stuff. Can't get enough of the guy, I swear. Good stuff. Thanks, DTC. Good to have you along. Say, Sully here, Costa there. So Momentus is a company that, as I just mentioned, is a satellite. I don't even know how to describe it in one simple term, but it's a satellite company that launches other satellites for other companies. And it's a thing.
Yeah. Anytime I start thinking I'm doing something big, all I have to do is just think of John Rood. And
yeah, exactly.
No, you're not.
May 25th, they had their first launch of its Vigoride spacecraft. And it's now in orbit, deployed 7 customer satellites, right?
Yeah.
They deployed another customer satellite from another deployer on the same launch with a total of 8 customer satellites put into orbit so far. So they've got a partnership with SpaceX. Maybe you heard of them, okay? They've got slots reserved to fly with them through the end of 2023. Next launch is targeted for December 6th, and I know the CEO of the company. His name's John Rood. John, how are you, sir? Good to see you, pal.
I'm doing great. Good to be with you guys.
It is always a pleasure to have you on the air, and you're stuck with us now, regardless, because it is such an interesting concept that space is an actual has a market size in a commercial world, not just in governmental scenarios, but in a commercial world, space has a market size. What do you think that market size will grow to eventually? Because you guys are, you know, not the final frontier, to borrow a theme from a very popular space franchise, but you guys are just at the tip of the spear here, correct?
That's right. The global space economy is growing faster than the regular terrestrial economy. And one of the things that's accelerating that is just all these new uses for space to make life better on Earth. You know, occasionally I hear people say, well, why would I want to do something in space? Well, it's to make our life better on Earth. Mm-hmm. And so whether that's for communications or all of the Internet of Things connectivity that our electronic devices at our homes are using to monitor things, whether it's the conflict going on in Ukraine, which is occurring, or to monitor crop growth, whatever the application is from space or weather, all those things are really taking off, and they're becoming much more affordable because the cost to go to orbit has come way down by over 95%, according to McKinsey, over the last 20 years. Mm-hmm. And then your ability to do things in space has become much more advanced because of the capability of small satellites.
And I think the small satellite business, I think I want to redefine again, because last time you were on the air, we were talking about literally, you know, the small satellite business, and we're talking about satellites the size of a bread box, satellites the size of a toaster. What are we talking about there? And give us an example of some of the utilities on those satellites.
Well, the different satellites can come in, and they're in standardized configurations these days, CubeSats. So some of them that are very capable will be about the size of like a tennis ball can. Others are a little bigger, think like you said, a bread box. And then microsatellites, about 200 kilograms, think like the size of a large microwave oven. That's really where you're seeing a lot of very, very capable satellites be developed. And you know, to your earlier point about the size of the market, the latest estimate from Space Foundation is $469 billion is the present size of the space economy. And credible people like the smallest longer-term estimate that I've seen is Bank of America estimating the space economy will grow to be $1 trillion by 2040. Now, there are other estimates, Morgan Stanley and so on, that are higher. But, you know, nobody can estimate with precision, but it's going to be larger.
Well, you know, what's interesting, though, is let me put it in layman's terms. If you capture 0.001% of that, you're a giant company. I mean,
that's a pretty good deal.
Think of that. That's a big deal. And I think the other thing that we need to talk about is that, you know, you aren't trying to be just a player. You're trying to be an industry leader in providing background infrastructure and services. Talk about the background services opportunity in space, because you don't ever think about that there could be a best practices infrastructure that could be leaned upon by other companies.
Yes, I mean, one of the changes that you're seeing is because the rockets are becoming larger and can carry lots of very small payloads, and the small payloads are becoming more capable. you've got a new need that didn't exist before. In the past, you'd have maybe a dozen, 20, 25 launches per year of satellites, very large things that took the whole capacity of the rocket to take it to space. Well, today, the way to think of a rocket is a lot like a container ship that's carrying all these 20 and 40-foot shipping containers that is going to space. So first need you have for infrastructure is you need somebody to redistribute that cargo, basically to be the UPS of space to go deliver those payloads to where they really want to be. And then the other thing that's happening is at the end of a satellite's life, many people don't realize they typically just run out of fuel. There's still a good operating satellite there. So to refuel it or to repair it. And then another major change that happened about 6 weeks ago is the FCC put in a new rule to require the deorbit of satellites at the end of their useful life, within 5 years of when they go defunct. And the reason is just there's been this massive growth in the number of objects in space. I'll just give you a couple of quick statistics. You know, since the first satellite was launched in 1957, there's been about 10,000 satellites put in space. Well, this year alone, there's been over 1,000, and most of the industry estimates say by the end of this decade, you're going to see 10,000 per year. So all of that creates a huge proliferation in the number of satellites, and you know, the European Space Agency or the Air Force are already tracking something like around 26,000 pieces of debris, not just satellites, but rocket stages, other stuff. And then there's a whole bunch more that we know is smaller. So current estimates are like 20 million pounds of space debris floating up there. So that's why the FCC put in this rule that you're going to have to deorbit your satellite at the end of 5 years, which creates another infrastructure need.
Now, so that's
like ours to come and deorbit those.
Right.
Things.
So that's a business model for you to fuel those up and deorbitize those, whatever that technology would be called, and that's a whole other ballgame, correct?
Yes, and this new rule in the past, you know, having debris in space was sort of like having debris in the ocean, but the problem is you're going to start having too many collisions if you have this many objects.
Yeah, right. Sure.
And little collisions create little pieces, which create more collisions. So it's kind of like, you know, to infinity and beyond, only in a bad way, right? In terms of what you're going to create in terms of debris. And so with this new requirement, you could have onboard propulsion in your satellite to deorbit it, but why would you want to do that when it's still operating? And that's why we think we've got a whole business model where we can come and grab that piece of debris, grab that satellite, tug it down to where it'll naturally burn up in the atmosphere, and then go do it again and again and again.
John, that's why we like following you guys. Once again, John Rood, CEO of the company Momentus, stock symbol MNTS. John, I can't wait to get you in San Diego. I can tell you we're starting to follow this company. One of my favorite guys. John, thanks so much, pal. We'll see you next week. John Rood. Look at that.
It is just on such a different plane of thinking.
It is. And they're creating other business models around it.
Yeah.
I love it. Oh, aren't you guys clever? Big Biz Show continues. Stand by. More Costa, Sully, the DTC.
DTC, baby.